Good morning, Marijuana Nation. It's Friday, November 17th, 2017, and you're tuned in to episode 376 of Marijuana Today Daily. I'm your host, Shay Gunther, and I'll be walking you through today's marijuana news and headlines. As always, we have a full and busy day of cannabis news in our hands, so let's jump right into it. Our top story of the day brings us out west to California, where state officials just released a set of emergency regulations that will govern their transition into a fully legal adult use and medical marijuana market. The entire set of temporary rules is lengthy, clocking in over 270 pages, so if you have any kind of real stake in California, you should probably click over to the OC Register where you'll find links to the full set of proposed regulations. But some of the highlights include limits for edibles and their THC content, the fee structure for cultivation, processing, and transportation businesses, and rules for how the industry can advertise. While some of the rules would go into effect on January 1st as Amendment 64 first comes online, others would be delayed 6 months to afford flexibility to cannabis businesses. Again, this is an excellent one to open up in full. As always, we have all the news we cover linked to on our website at mjtodaydaily.com and on our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily. The Canadian province of Quebec just revealed their draft legislation yesterday governing how they'll implement the nationwide adult use legalization set to land in Canada sometime next summer. Quebec is following along with fellow province Ontario in imposing a state-owned solution for dispensing cannabis. Their government-owned corporation will open up 15 marijuana stores by this July with a stated goal of expanding to 150 within 2 years. Quebec also wants to ban home grow entirely while setting the harshest rules for driving under the influence that I've seen anywhere, mandating an automatic 90-day suspension of any driver's license caught with any measurable amount of THC metabolites in their system. Given that their plan for regulating driving under the influence is relying on the federal government in Ottawa to develop a working test for cannabis impairment, something that we all know hasn't been developed and might not ever be, that part of the province's law is likely to evolve. We'll continue to follow along as that happens. Our final top story of the day is the news that the Cannabis Business Industry Association has signed on in support of Michigan's campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol, which I've reported on in recent days for their work collecting ballot signatures to place an adult use question before Michigan voters next November. The last time I picked up on this story, the campaign was in need of around $30,000 in funding to release the last set of signatures they had paid a private third-party company to collect, and with the additional might of NCIA at their back, it looks like they'll have no problem freeing up those locked-up signatures. The campaign said they'll be holding a press conference in the state capital of Lansing on Monday, November 20th at 1 p.m. to formally announce the submission of the more than 250,000 signatures that they collected. Those are our top stories for today. It's time for Marijuana Today Daily Headlines Blitz. Before we blitz it in headlines, let's quickly thank our sponsor, Students for Sensible Drug Policy. Our friends over at SSDP asked if we could use today's spot to talk about a very local battle they're waging in Washington, D.C. to keep the D.C. Mall open to recreational sports. SSDP plays a big part in organizing the One Hitters Congressional Softball League team, which has not only served as a great way to bring people from different drug policy organizations together, but has also been invaluable in humanizing drug policy activists within the sometimes insular world of DC political insiders. The National Park Service wants to keep leagues like the Congressional Softball League, as well as sports like kickball, off the mall while also ramping up the fees the teams have to pay to play on the space that's left over. Please take a moment today and open up yesmallball.com to sign a change.org petition asking the National Park Service to drop the proposed ban and additional fees. That's 3 words, yesmallball.com. And as always, you can open up ssdp.org to learn more about Students for Sensible Drug Policy. All right, time for the Blitz. Florida's top medical cannabis regulator is blaming the Bank of America for causing the months-long delay his agency is wading through in issuing medical marijuana cards to newly registering patients. Christian Bax, director of the Florida Office of Medical Marijuana Use, testified in front of the State Health Quality Subcommittee on Wednesday and said that the Bank of America was refusing to process online payments made by hopeful medical marijuana patients. He said his agency was also having problems dealing with the logistics of collecting and processing checks that patients are choosing to use instead. There are currently more than 20,000 patients still waiting to get their medical marijuana card in Florida. Matt Lammers over at Marijuana Business Daily has a good piece up looking at the various forays licensed Canadian medical marijuana providers are making into Latin American markets and projects. with Colombia in particular receiving a lot of interest and investment. Toronto-based company Chiron said that Colombia is attractive as a country for developing cannabis products in because of its ideal climate and consistent daytime hours, its experienced agricultural sector, as well as shipping ports on both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts, which will allow easier global exports. This is a good one to open up in full. Tom Angel over Marijuana Moment picked up on a discussion held yesterday in the U.S. Senate over the use of marijuana as a disqualifying condition for appointment to the federal judiciary. Under current rules for appointing judges to the federal bench, any previous use of cannabis would knock away a nominee's chances, but the Senate Judiciary Committee is revisiting that policy. Prohibitionist Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa even went as far as to concede that if they ban people who have ever smoked cannabis, they could run into a situation soon where there'd be no one left to consider. There's a scary sounding headline bouncing around the newssphere right now about a supposed overdose death of an 11-month-old baby from marijuana. But as Ellie Silverman over at the Washington Post is reporting, the actual story behind the scare line is way more nuanced. The baby boy died of myocarditis, an inflammation of the heart, while living in close quarters with his cannabis-using parents, and the doctor who reported on his death in a study published in August noted the possible connection between exposure to marijuana and his heart problems. That was enough for lazy editors and bloggers who inflated the noted connection to headlines screaming that pot had killed a baby. Please open up the Washington Post story on this one to get all the details. When false and exaggerated stories like this pop up, it's incumbent upon all of us to squash it down with facts before it does something like elect Donald Trump as president. Licensed Canadian medical marijuana provider Aurora Cannabis just announced that it was raising up to $100 million Canadian in funding through the issuance of special warrants through Canaccord Genuity Corporation. Upon completion of this round, the company says they'll have more than $340 million Canadian in cash to fund their operation and expansion into both Canadian and global markets. A new report by ArcView Market Research using data from BDS Analytics suggests that cannabis dispensaries would be as profitable as Starbucks stores if they were taxed at the same rate as every other legal business. Regular listeners know that federal banking laws prevent legal cannabis business owners from expensing most of the normal expenses available to non-marijuana businesses, meaning that some end up paying an effective tax rate as high as 70%. ArcView's latest report estimates that your average marijuana dispensary generated $2 million in revenue each year, and if taxed at the same rate as non-cannabis businesses, would create a 12% after-tax profit, which is right in line with Starbucks. And finally for today, marijuana testing company Steep Hill is launching a venture capital fund for early state startups specializing in the science of marijuana. The newly formed Steep Hills Ventures hopes to raise up to $100 million in investment funds to deploy with companies in the seed to Series A funding level. Those are the headlines and news for the day. I'll be back with you again Monday morning with another information-packed episode of Marijuana Today Daily. But in the meantime, if you have any stories to share or feedback to give, zip us an email to headlines@mjtodaydaily.com. And while you're clicking around the interwebs, swing over to our Twitter account at mjtodaydaily and visit our website at mjtodaydaily.com to find links to all the news we cover. Thanks to our sponsor, SSDP, and to all of our awesome Patreon listeners for the support that makes this show possible. To join the illustrious ranks of the Patreon listeners yourself, swing over to our website at mjtodaydaily.com and click on that big blue button at the top of the page that says Become a Patron. I'm your host, Shay Gunther. Thanks for tuning in and starting your day with marijuana today.
One take, Shay. One take.